One thing I would not do is like just throw money into the digital world going into winter because I think paid leads like Facebook and Google, they're great at demand capture.
What is up, YouTube Boolean watchers? You come to watch the most niche channel on YouTube, which is Boolean's Automation channel. Today, we are not talking about automation. We're talking about a thing that I have a lot of experience in, but we don't actually do anymore, and that is marketing. So, Brian, who's a client of ours, had a question that we get asked quite often, and I finally was smart enough to say, Brian, we should just go do a podcast style video where I bring on Nathan, who also has a lot of experience in running a painting business and marketing as well, and just talk about what are the best practices, best ideas to help market your painting company and grow it. So this is our attempt in collaboration with Brian and Jamaica, their new marketing manager, to come on and put all this information of like, here's some free tips, ideas, tricks to improve your marketing. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. I think just so everyone can get some context, if we could do like a round robin of just try and keep it short, like 30 seconds, maybe who you are, what's your relevant marketing and or painting experience, and then like what are you hoping to get out of this conversation? Because we're all trying to learn from each other right now. We didn't script anything. So yeah, what are you excited to get out of the conversation today? And then, yeah, who are you and your relevant painting or marketing experience?
Hey everybody, I am Nathan Tenaple. I live in Kansas City, Kansas, technically Lenexa, Kansas. And I am working with Boolean. I'm on the marketing and sales team over here. And I also have a painting company that I'm an owner of in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, Select Painting. And we will do about $10 million this year. And we do big GC commercial work. We do repaint work. And we also do floor coatings. And I'm excited to talk with Chris and Brian and Jamaica about marketing.
My name's Brian McCracken. I'm the owner of All American Painting Plus. We're a residential painting company out of Reston, Virginia, right outside of Washington, D.C. We do 95% residential repaints. And yeah, what I'd like to get out of today's podcast is that I had brought Jamaica on. I've never had a designated marketing person. My wife was doing some marketing, but it was kind of here and there and inconsistent. So I needed to bring somebody on who could do marketing consistently. So I brought Jamaica on. Jamaica has a great experience. She's very well rounded, but she's coming from a different industry, which is the automotive industry that she'll tell you about in a second. But she's never done construction marketing, service-based marketing. So I guess I reached out to Chris and said, hey, what would you be working on foundationally, like right through the door, day one? What are you working on? And I guess, how do you get up to speed on a service that you're about to market that you've never had really much experience with?
My name is Jamaica De Castro, and I am from Manila, Philippines. I was hired by Brian at All American Painting Plus last August, so I just celebrated my first month and in 2 weeks. And I've been navigating like the painting industry, but then I would love to hear some advice from the experts themselves. So I'm looking forward to, finally get them on this call.
So I, like I do with everything, I had ChatGPT come up with the most common questions that painting companies have um, for these. So the first thing that I would say, answering the question directly of like, what would you focus on, or what should Jamaica be focusing on? I would say, I think it's always really good to get at least a baseline of where you're at. So, whatever tracking that you have done, maybe it's not great, but that's okay. You got to start somewhere. But do you have a sense of like how much of your business or leads are coming from Google search versus any paid advertising if you're doing any of that? how much repeat business are you doing, or what percentage of your clients are repeat. One thing about that I would say is uh, I really do not like tracking the source of a client as a repeat customer, because I don't think that that's a source. I think that that's a status that you should track, but oftentimes, in my experience, there's something about your brand or your professionalism or the fact that you send out a newsletter or marketing emails, or your sales rep follows up with people and checks in on their project. That's the marketing action that should get attributed the lead, which is like a repeat customer, to come to you. So when you're looking at your results, like where are we coming from right now? First, just make a list of, hopefully you've got a CRM of, like, you can export all the deals and see what percentage of your leads are coming from what sources. But that would be one thing I would say right out of the gate, is just like get a lay of the land of that. Do you guys have? Do you feel like you have those metrics, Brian?
Yeah, I feel like we do. We're kind of in between because we were using a different CRM, and you got us on HubSpot. But yeah, I think we can extract most, if not all, of that out of HubSpot.
Yeah, I was gonna say, lucky for you, you should, or if you don't know how to do it yet, there's a report that we can make that will show you your lead sources. We always recommend at Boolean that you have somewhere between 7 and 10 lead sources. I think a trap that people often fall into is they think that they need to get really granular and track every single piece of paper that leaves their office and figure out if it was this one or that one or whatever, you know. And the reality is that I always ask, why are you tracking? Like, I mean, you can even go back to, like, what's the purpose of marketing? What are we doing? Why is Jamaica here? What is success for her? And I would say this is what it was for me when I was at Webfoot, was leads. Get us leads, get a lot of them, and make sure they're good. I was the that was the metric, was how many leads did we get last week? Was that above or below our goal? If it was above, great. How do we do more of that? If it was below, what's wrong? What else could we try? What could we experiment with? So that's the first thing, is just like agreeing that that's the goal. But then when you track sources, then I think people don't ask this question, and it's like, why am I tracking sources? And when you get too granular, I don't know if you've ever heard of the 80-20 principle. Richard Koch wrote a book about this, but it's not his idea. It's Pareto's law is what it's called. But it's the idea that 20% of your action is going to produce 80% of the results. And sometimes it's even more exaggerated. Sometimes it's 10% of the action produces 90% of the results. But that's the same idea with, like, if you've ever heard of the, 1% of the population has 99% of the wealth. It's like that idea, but applied to nature and fish and the ocean. It's like, it's all the same. Like, even if you look at, I just flew on an airplane, you feel like the world's packed, and then you fly in an airplane and there's no cities for like hours and hours and hours. It's just empty. It's because our population is concentrated in, I don't know what the number is, but it's probably close to that 80-20, where 80% of the population is focused in less than 20% of the land. It's that idea. And that's the same thing that happens in marketing. And because of that, if you spend too much time tracking every single possible lead source and magazine and everything, you're going to end up with 80% of your sources that have less than 20% of things in there. And what that means is a huge chunk of them are, like, not even helpful. Like, let's say that you found out that you got 3 leads from the ad that you put in the home magazine or whatever. It's like, great. Now Jamaica is in a slow season and she needs to go get more leads. So her wasting time and energy on a source that provided you less than 1% of your leads is like, it's not going to move the needle. Like, we need to be focusing on things that are going to have a significant percentage impact on the total. So that's why I always would say, and your current sources, Brian, because I know we set them up, are solid. So I would say, starting with that, you've got 7 to 10 lead sources that you're tracking. And now you can actually see when you need more leads, you're going to go to the paid sources that are performing well and see if you can ramp those up. Nathan, do you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, marketing is about generating leads at the end of the day. That's when you're marketing home service, it's much less about, I think, about like branding and more there's an aspect of it, but it's like at the end of the day, marketing a home service company is generating leads, and then how much did it cost you to generate those leads? And you should know what's your threshold, like what's the amount that you can spend on a lead to know if you're within the standard or not. Um, and that's, specifically for paid leads. And then there's lots of things. Another big one is operational marketing. And there's a whole realm around that of like getting your crews to be thinking about marketing. I think that's another big one.
One of the most useful things for someone like Jamaica is to have a target and be very specific about the number. And even if you're not positive, it's way more effective to have goals and projections for leads. And I'm blown away at how many people do not know what, like, they don't have a number. They're just like, we need a lot of leads, And the way that I would do this is like, this is legitimately probably the most valuable thing I can give a marketing person. And I don't know how I didn't think about this before, but it is, there's a term. Everybody tracks average job size, and everyone also tracks close rate. And when I was at Webfoot, it's really hard to, when different estimators have different close rates and they also have different job sizes, plus your project types vary with job size. So it's just like a very complex thing to try and project. And I had this realization, which I don't know if any of you had the moment where you think you have this original idea that is like never been thought of before. And that's what I thought I was doing. And it was called, we called it value per sales qualified lead, or VPS. Came up with a really cool acronym. I was like, oh, people are going to be talking about VPS all the time. Like 2 years later, I find out that it's just called NSLI. So if you know NSLI, it's the same thing I'm going to explain right now. But what the power of this is that you basically can calculate your NSLI. And then what I would suggest is, let's do it for you, Brian. How many different project types do you have in your business?
Ooh, good question. Yeah,
So
probably
there's like interior, exterior.
interior
Do you guys do
carpentry,
cabinets
exterior.
as a separate?
Yep, interior carpentry, exterior carpentry. So about 5, maybe some power washing. I don't know if you'd consider
Okay.
wallpaper removal another one, but maybe 7.
Okay. So I would say that actually, I'm going to share my screen here because we could do this very quickly, and then you could change this to be to fit like your actual numbers once you find them. But let's say that the NSLI, I honestly, I have to put VPS because it feels like home to me, but it is the same thing. What this means is it's saying, and I just think that value per estimate, or VPE would be another one, but it's value per like appointment on the calendar. That means if I gave Brian, who's our sales rep, 10 leads, how much revenue would Brian generate for the business with 10 leads? So, for example, to calculate it, you just say, what was the total revenue that we did for cabinets last year? So, like, well, actually, I'll build this out and I can share this with anyone that wants this. But if this is how you'd calculate it, so you'd say revenue in 2023. And I'm going to put in just fake numbers. Brian, you can come back later and change these, or Jamaica, you can. But let's say I did 400,000 in revenue of interiors, and let's say interior cabinets, and say that interior painting was 800,000, exteriors was 1.1, and carpentry was I don't know, 500,000. So that's our total revenue. Then you just say, how many leads did we run? Did we schedule on the calendar? And so you could say, and lead, or I'm gonna, what we call them is SQLs. So these are like appointments on the calendar. And so I'm just going to try and get a ballpark one that's close here. So if you do it this way, we're going to say that I got 200 leads for that. And this one I got 275 leads. And for exteriors, we got 400 leads. And for carpentry, we got 300. So I don't know if these are even close. I'm just making these up, but I was looking for numbers that seem believable. This seems somewhat believable to me. So all this is saying is that every lead that we got in the business generated every cabinet lead that we got generated us $2,000. So now, Brian, you could actually use your real numbers. What is your guys's goal? I don't know if you've done 2025, but let's just say for Q4, which is coming up in a couple days. Do you know how much revenue you want to produce for cabinets, interiors, exteriors, or carpentry?
I mean, I don't have it broken down that far. I've got it kind of probably as a sum. I'd have to pull up the budget.
Do you have it for the year?
Oh, yeah, it's around 2.3 million, I think.
For interior cabinets alone?
Oh, I'm sorry. No, not that would be all services combined.
Okay, so let's do. Actually, here's another just rough estimate. What's the percentage of revenue that's cabinets? Just super ballpark. Do
5%.
four percentages.
Five
What was
percent.
the first one? Five.
5. Yep.
5%. What's this one?
Probably like 40.
And
40.
exterior.
Yeah, around 40 as well.
And then the remainder would be 15. Okay. So if this is your percentage, whoops, 5, 40, 40, and 15. If that's your percentage of revenue, you're telling me that the goal is 2.2 million in revenue. So we'll just do this and say that times 2.2. And there's our, oops, this is, so now we have, this was your revenue goal for each service. So this is, let's say, 2024 revenue goal. And you might think that we're a long ways away, but we are super close. So now we have our revenue goal for cabinets and Jamaica, to see if you're paying attention to this and this makes sense. If I need to do 110,000 in cabinet revenue, how many cabinet leads do I need? Or how would I calculate cabinet leads? Brian, you want to give it a shot? Nathan,
50,
anyone?
55.
Yeah, so you do, or the way to calculate it is you take your NSLI, which is up above, and you put it here, and then this is the leads, which is literally just total revenue divided by NSLI, and boom, here's your total lead count for the entire year. So what that means,
these are appointments.
These are
not leads, they're appointments.
They're scheduled estimates, right? And actually, there's some really good clarity that we could go into in a second. But yeah, these are, if Jamaica is successfully with Michelle is able to get 55 cabinet leads on Brian and the other sales reps' calendars for the year. And this is, let's say this actually is your NSLI. So the homework for you, Brian, is take your total revenue for 23 by project type, look at your leads by project type, and get a ballpark of your NSLI. Then you can say, okay, now we have our NSLI, which is what you have to calculate first. And now you're just saying, okay, 2024 revenue was that's our goal. You could do the same thing for 2025. We could even now say, okay, I think we can grow. Let's say our revenue for carpentry is actually 1.2 million is what we want to do. 1.2. Change my formatting there. So let's say it's actually 1.2 million. This is now saying I would need 436 leads to get 1.2 million. And it's literally like the clarity that came for me when I was the marketing manager was just like, that's awesome. And now the cooler part is you can take something like this. And again, look at historical data. It's so much easier when you just break it down to how you do for like, how did you do in each month in 2023? Because you're probably going to do about the same in the next year as well. So if this is our entire year, and just for simple math, we'll say every month, if you take 100% divided by 12 months, you're going to get something like 8% is the low number, but I could put in 8% of the total leads in each month. And now I could say for cabinets, I want to get 8% of my total leads that I need for cabinets, which is 55. I can do 8% times 55 leads and then lock that cell. And now I can say, Jamaica, you need to get 4.4 leads in January of cabinets, 4.4 in February. But now I could be, again, if you get your actual historical data, what you're going to find is that your cabinet leads were way up, actually, not in the summertime. It's when people are spending all their time inside. So maybe your cabinet leads are more like 14% they came in August, and 20% were in September, and in March it was actually only 2% and 1%, and whatever the percentage is, but you get the idea that you can actually break out month by month lead goals just by having your NSLI by project type, and then break down, like literally export all of your leads for the year and just tally up how many leads, what percentage of leads did we get for all of our cabinets, what percentage came in January, February, March, April across the board. And then you set up your monthly lead goals just like this. And then you do that for every single project type. So now you can do the same thing and say, okay, my exteriors, which at least when I was at Webfoot, exterior percentage was more like April and May were huge numbers. It was like 20%, 20%, and then it would drop to maybe 12% in June, and then it starts tapering off. But when you do it like that, you can actually see, if we do the exterior now, the XTP, when you do it this way, yeah, so it comes out, and you can start to see, like, in these months, because of how we're splitting this up, it's approximately, we needed 87 leads in April, and another 87 in May, and then 52, 43, and so on. So like, it really just helps you laser focus in on where should we spend that money. But this is like legitimately the most critical thing that I would start with, is just figure out, okay, in the next 12 months, and go grab your historical data first. I wouldn't go back more than a year, just because people grow so quickly, and also prices change and stuff. But this is going to give you, like, if you've never done this before, doing this activity is going to laser focus all the other conversations that you need to have, because now it's like, Jamaica, you have to get 87 leads in April. What are you going to do that? It's like, oh gosh, I don't even know, like, what lead sources even have the potential to give us 87 leads. And let's not talk about the distraction that might give us two. Like, I need a trade show, or we're going to spend a lot of money on Google, or come up with a really killer Facebook ad campaign. But when you do this, you just, like, everything starts to, like, become very manageable. And then the other thing, that this is the next layer deep, which I would say, honestly, just what I showed you here, if anyone wants this spreadsheet, we'll put it in the comments, so you can just copy it and continue to build off of this. But you could obviously make this also a lot prettier as well. But the next thing you could do is, and the way I would do it, is break it down by, okay, now we're going to talk about exterior painting specifically. And then I want to put all my sources in here. So you guys have, like, brand, web search, or let's do social, home show, I don't know what, referrals, whatever the thing is. And you do the same exact thing for this. Like, oh, we found out that 5% of our leads came from brand, 20% came from web search, social media produced 15%. And you go down the list on all these things, and you start to do the same exact thing. And now we're just doing this for exterior. So now Jamaica, I just told you had to get 87 leads in May and June. You can put that number 87 here, and now I can tell you how much you need to get in the given category of lead or in the given category of marketing. Whoops. So like this. Whoops, going the wrong way. So now I'm saying that in order to achieve this, you have to figure out how to get there like that. You need to get us 39 leads from brand, which, by the way, you can't really affect brand. But if this is what you got last year, brand is the passive lead source. So I can basically promise Jamaica, okay, we're going to get 40 leads just because we're All American Painting. And that's what we've shown people. Our brand and our presence is going to bring us 40 leads. I need you to figure out how to get us 17 leads in web search, 13 leads on social media, 8 leads at home shows. And then Jamaica, you'd be like, we actually don't have a home show that we can even go to in April. So we're going to have to change this number to 0. And we got to redistribute that percentage to a different lead source. Does that make sense? Because there's certain sources that are going to be not optional. Like you have to think, and that's why I also, when you start doing it this way, this is why I'm so passionate about taking all of your passive leads that are just like, again, brand leads, in my opinion. I don't care if it was from your truck or your yard sign or a door or your business card or whatever, like all those stuff that you just do because you're professional. I can't get more leads when you tell me to get more leads, but I do need to know how many came from all those professional marketing activities that we're not going to stop doing, because that allows me to project for the future. But the things you need to spend all your tracking time on is the paid ones, the ones that require energy or time, like canvassing, door knocking, putting out, like sending your crew around to do the 20 nearest houses with door hangers. Those types of activities, if you need to ramp up marketing, you can, because you have metrics and numbers. And also, it's like when we did this, we found out that, like, in our prospecting category, we needed like 8 marketing leads a month, which is like, okay, that's really manageable. But it got even more manageable. It was like, hey, sales reps, you each have to bring me 2 leads. I need you to find 2 leads somewhere. They don't even need to be a sale. I just need you to get an estimate with 2 people from your own efforts. And now all of a sudden it's a really attainable, like, you telling me you can't find 2 people to give an estimate to in the next 30 days? Like, you know what I mean? It's so attainable, because all of a sudden this massive 87 lead goal for April is like, oh, you get 2, we'll get 10 from here. Facebook will give us this. And it's just like, oh, this is, now we're just solving really bite-sized problems. And then you just go solve, what's our Facebook ad going to be? And how much money are we going to put behind it? And so on. So that's my rant.
I want to add just a couple clarifications and then a couple layers. One, I would say these are appointments and not leads. And I think you do need to look at those differently, because there's a conversion rate from a lead to an estimate associated with every different type of lead source, right? So Chris, if you go back down to that, you need 87 appointments. Chris, it's been bugging me this whole time you've been saying that. Leads. No, these are appointments. These are scheduled appointments that you're meeting with a customer. So if you put,
the funny thing is that we at Webfoot, we defined, like, what do you say lead? What are you talking about?
it's a name and a number.
And then
That's my
exactly.
definition.
Oh, no. At Webfoot, it was drilled into my bones that I couldn't even say I got a lead unless it was on someone's calendar.
Okay. So we are talking about the same semantics,
yes,
tomato.
We're on the same page.
But another way to look at it, so if you go to the column over and you say conversion rate, that one.
Which one over here?
Yep. And then the next one over is what I would call leads, which is a name and a number, which in my opinion, this is what Jamaica has to generate. names and numbers, right, of potential
Oh, I gotcha.
customers. And then if you go down to brand,
We'll do it like this.
I know
We're
you.
going to say this is an MQL, which is, so, because this is actually like the Boolean system is using this
Okay.
language, which is very close to what we're both saying. But you have this is what I'm saying
Yeah.
is appointments. Our conversion rate, I would say, is roughly 80%. And it's going to vary by
Well,
lead
that's what I was
source
going to say.
slightly.
Brand is going to be some of your best leads. They're probably going to be a phone call. They're probably going to be a text message. You're going to have, yeah, call it a 90% conversion rate on that. Web search is also really good.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to be around 80% for that. Social, you're going to be around 15%, probably. Sorry, 50%. I've heard some people probably
Yeah.
30 to 50% from Facebook leads, right?
Now
What I would call a lead.
we're talking from a lead to an appointment conversion.
Yes. Yeah. From a name and a number from social media to an appointment is probably 50. So if you need 13 appointments based on your NSLI, you need 26 names and numbers from social to hit that number, right? Um, home show is probably 50%. Referrals are again higher, more like 80%. So now you know based on your NSLI how many appointments you need. And then if you know what your conversion rate is, now you know how many names and numbers that you need to generate each month. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And we actually would go, or if you're going down this route of like the funnel, which I love, we would also track one more thing. So we called this attrition. And so this was your conversion rate, which is I have MQLs, which by the way, Brian, the way that we've set up your guys' system, any form that comes in, any phone call, Michelle should be creating a record that we got a phone call and then we disqualified them on the phone and did not schedule them. That phone call still needs to be a deal in the system and you mark it as closed, lost reason, not a fit or out of service area or whatever. Because you want to know that that's all, like to your point, Nathan, there's nothing more frustrating for Jamaica if she's putting out all this effort and energy to try and solve the marketing problem. And you guys are like, oh, we only generated 10 leads. And she's like, I could have sworn there was like, we had 400 clicks. It's like, oh no, we got 60 calls and they're all calling and asking if we could wash their dog. Like we don't do that. Like, oh, we need to redefine. Maybe our targeting's off. Maybe, or like a really common one is you're getting all these Facebook leads for like $5 and they're in Florida or they're in the, like because you didn't shrink your circle. So having an idea of what your conversion rate should be immediately is like, ooh, something's off with our targeting or messaging or something. And if you don't track MQLs and you only track leads, then you're going to not give the marketing person the information they need to kind of refine the process. But yes, when you're talking about hitting your NSLI or VPS, it is scheduled appointments on the calendar. And the last thing I would say is your sales reps will disqualify some of those, or sometimes those appointments will cancel. And this is really important. In order to be able to have a conversation with marketing and sales, once a deal or an opportunity becomes an SQL, they are an SQL forever. If they call today and they cancel tomorrow, Jamaica still got you a lead, and that's a on the appointment account or on the calendar appointment, and that counts for the sake of tracking this. We are going to mark that it's now lost, and the lost reason was a cancellation. But you need to track every scheduled appointment as like it's a timestamp, and we got a lead. Jamaica gets a point. You can't have Jamaica keeping score if all like her score is randomly like points are just disappearing from her scorecard that she told you. Like I got 25 leads last week, and then only 20 of them ran. So who's right? Did she get 20 or 25? And what I would say is they're both correct statistics, and the thing that people miss on this part is the attrition, which we found at Webfoot was somewhere between 8 and 17%. That was the number I always remember, but call it 12% of your leads are going to not turn into actual estimates that I send. So I schedule 39.3. I'm going to lose 12% of those. And so in the end, the actual estimates that the estimator gives ends up being this number right here, minus, oh, whoops, I'm doing this the wrong way. This minus this times this. So that's your, like, she gets you 39 SQLs, which is the target. So she won. And it's okay that we had 4 cancellations or 5 cancellations because we worked all that into the NSLI calculation. And the NSLI calculation was not based on how many completed estimates did I send. It was based on how many appointments did I set. And as long as when you're calculating your NSLI, you include that piece, then you're going to be fine in the rest of the math because it all, you've already factored in that attrition rate.
Okay, so another thing, this is like a fire hose, man.
Yeah.
Another thing is NSLI, you also have to look at it per salesperson. Okay? Because really NSLI, it's a beautiful metric, and I love it. I like it the most for salespeople. Like if you've got 3 people selling for you, who has the best NSLI in the different project types? Because it's a great indicator that takes into account average job size, right? Are they selling big jobs or are they selling small jobs? And then it also takes into account your closing ratio, which is your appointment set to close deals, right? Both of those numbers matter when you're looking at salespeople, but NSLI does a beautiful job of kind of blending those and really indicating who's your best salesperson. If I give Joe 10 leads, how much revenue is he going to generate for me? If I give Bob 10 leads, how much revenue is he going to generate for me? And if I give Samantha 10 leads, how much revenue is she going to generate for me? And then that NSLI is your best indicator of who's going to take care of your leads. What salesperson is going to take care of your leads the best?
Is the closing rate or the win rate baked in there somewhere? Because that's it.
Yeah. So that's the thing, is that another way to calculate your close rate and average job size, or sorry, another way to calculate NSLI is to multiply your close rate by your average job size. You're going to get the same number. So it's just, if you think about what that's saying is, I have X number of leads. Well, actually, what NSLI is your close rate, average job size, plus your attrition. It's all 3 of those baked into your net sales per lead issue. But you could also do what we call the VPE, value per estimate given. And so that's similar to the VPS, which is the NSLI. It's just we take out all the cancellations and walkaways and things we didn't choose to bid. But the one modification I would say, Nathan, I completely agree that sales should look at NSLI by rep. Marketing, which is like Jamaica's job, she just needs to be given one average number. But then the sales manager holds every salesperson on the team accountable to beating the average NSLI that is for the company. And I would recommend that you set your bonuses not on what was your close rate or average job size or revenue sold, but you get a bonus if you're above the benchmark, which we determine is the like minimum NSLI that you can have at our company. And if you hit that NSLI, then you get whatever the bonus is. And the reason that's so important is because Jamaica, like, marketing is so complex and you have to break down so many different layers anyways. And I don't know if John's going to run my lead or Sam is or whoever. So Jamaica just knows I need to get leads. So I would say NSLI should just be an average by project type for marketing. And then 100% your sales manager should be reviewing NSLA by rep to say, hey, you're below the benchmark that we're using to calculate our goals. That's not okay. Like, you have to be above it. Or maybe one person had an off month, but someone else crushed it and our team average was still good. So we're okay. But, like, you know what I'm saying? So that's how I would suggest doing that.
Yeah, and it depends how survival of the fittest you are. But some companies will say, John has the best NSLI for the last 3 months, so he's going to get the first leads. I'm filling his schedule first because he's taking care of the leads that I give him. John, he needs more time to handle a lead well. So I'm only going to give him 2 leads a day because his NSLI is low and he needs more time to follow up and prepare for the estimate and all this stuff. Once he gets his NSLI up, I'll now give him more appointments, right? So that's another way to use that metric. So
And Chris, can we automate all this into HubSpot, or where would we? How would we automate this?
Which aspect?
Everything we're talking about today.
This part here is getting you. So this is where Jamaica's job comes in, and this is the marketing manager's job, because I'm putting in a bunch of hard coded formulas. But the part that people, or that you should know, is that ultimately what I would suggest is that what you're trying to do is Jamaica is trying to, like, Jamaica, you should be able to tell Brian in a month after you work through all this, is like, okay, in February, my goal for carpentry is 7.8 leads. That's your goal. And then the other piece, though, that you have to do is, first of all, season, like, there's an election happening, right? There's all the other stuff. So just blindly saying, like, this was our average before and this is what it's going to be, is not smart. And that's where the marketer has to come in and say, I came up with 7.8 leads because our average for this thing was 6. But I think if we spend this much more money or do these things differently, we're going to get more leads here. Or I actually am going to have a smaller lead goal in this month because the next month we have a home show and we're going to get leads at the home show. Like, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, yes, we can show you a dashboard that says, here's your NSLI by rep, by project type. That's all. Like, the data historically, super easy. Projections is where I would say you take that historical data and you plug it into a model, but someone has to come in and say, that doesn't make any sense at all. There's no way we're going to get that. And we need to remove those numbers around. So yeah, like basically the bottom half is person, thought process, debating. It's like showing it to the management team. Does anyone have any questions? Poke holes in this, and then you execute and you report back. Hey, we got this much. And so again, that reporting piece. How many leads did Jamaica get in February for carpentry? That's automated. But did we live up to the goal? That's the part, or what is the goal is really, that's the part that you should, like, put some thought into and not just blindly take the averages. Does that make sense?
I guess going into winter, I mean, not only is she not familiar with the trade per se, she's not familiar with the seasonality of the trades. So you're going into winter, you're brand new, you're just getting started. I mean, like, she's got her socials up and running, she's got some good foundational stuff going on, but like, what do you do? Like, winter's here, winter is coming, I guess we would say. Uh,
Yeah, I would say, like, probably the first thing I would do is pull the lead report for like October, November, December last year, just so you have an idea of, like, what did we have last year, because it's hard to beat. You can't beat something if you don't know what you're shooting at, right? But at least you have a number that's like, okay, that we're going to try and get, we got 25 last year on web search, I'm going to find a way to get 26. And, like, how are we going to do that, right? Or maybe it's, I'm going to try and find a way to get 30 or 35 because we grew and we are bigger than we were last year. But that's the first thing. But winter, I'll tell you what we would do. That's when you pull out your email list, your texting. Um, uh, it's like your repeat business is all your exterior customers should be getting an email, multiple emails throughout the winter, and text message promos. Hey, we have a $500 off in interior if you do it, or schedule an estimate before the end of the month. Like, these urgent call to actions. But it's really, I would say, wintertime is where you, that's when you have to start marketing. When I was at Webfoot, we called it the War on Winter, and we started planning for the War on Winter in July. So it's like, we don't need to market in the summertime. There's nothing to do. We're like turning off spending because there's too many leads. And all of a sudden, August, September comes, leads start dipping, And then that's when the marketing team is just like pushing all the buttons, spending money. And we would spend like per lead cost was probably 3 to 5 times higher in the winter months than it was in the summer. But that's because the summer was like, $20 or something. And in the wintertime, we'd be willing to spend $250 if it was a, 4,000 average job size cabinet project.
I'd say some do's and don'ts going into the winter. So it's like your existing customer list is your most valuable asset right now. Like calling them, texting them, emailing them, sending them mailers, like they should be like, "Oh my gosh, Brian and Jamaica are everywhere." Right? That's going to be your lowest cost per lead and your highest like actionable thing, especially going into winter, right? So how do you maximize your existing customer list? Um, I would say the other thing that works in the winter would just be like incentivizing your team and your people, like your salespeople, to generate leads. Go bring donuts to property managers. Here's a list of retail, strip mall owners. Like call them, become their friend, do that stuff, right? And give them the direction they need, give them tools, give them phone numbers, give them lists, and then give them metrics that you're going to hold them accountable to. So prospecting is something you can do any time of year, right? One thing I would not do is like just throw money into the digital world going into winter, because I think paid leads, so like Facebook and Google, they're great at demand capture. So when the demand is high in the summer and in the spring, um, paid leads are the best because they're good at capturing demand that already exists. Okay. There's another term in marketing, which is demand generation. Okay. You have to have really dialed in content in order to generate demand via paid digital ads, right? It's a lot cheaper to generate demand with your existing customer list and face to face, right? Which is essentially what you're trying to do in the winter. You're trying to create demand where there is none because people don't want you in their houses and they're trying to get ready for the holidays and they're buying Christmas presents and they're doing all of this other stuff. So you've got to figure out a way to like get them excited about painting or whatever your service is. You've got to generate demand rather than just capture it.
What about oh, I was going to say, what about specials, Nathan? Do you run specials in the wintertime to incentivize, or do you just keep your prices the same?
Specials can be a great way to do it. 15, if you're going to do a discount, 15% is the number. It's the lowest number that still moves the needle. 10%, you won't generate as much interest. But if you start to go to 20 or 25, that's when you know, people start thinking, they're just going to inflate their prices, or if you do mark it off that much, you're losing all your profit or whatever. So 15% is the number if you're going to do it. Create some sort of scarcity or urgency around it. 10 customers in October are going to get the 15% promotion, right? Something like that. Another great way to do a promotion is an add on. So, like a free pressure washing or a free bedroom, free bathroom, a free whatever, like a value based promotion. It can also be a really effective way to go about it. Mm-hmm.
What I was just gonna, this is another big thing that everyone wonders, like, what should my marketing budget be? The other benefit of the NSLI approach is that, Brian, what is your target marketing spend to revenue in your business? Do you know? Like, do you have a threshold of like, we don't want to spend more than blank percent of our total revenue on marketing?
Yeah, I mean, my coaching recommends 3 to 5%. So right now we're probably at 3, but we could go as high as 5.
Yeah. So I would say I agree with that, maybe as an average for the year, because again, in the winter or in the summertime, we would barely spend anything and get like, I bet we spent 20% of our budget between May and August. Like it was, there's no, we, for, actually, I should say like April to September really is where it was really busy. But I would say you can come in here now and say, I want to spend 5% of revenue, which again, I would say you should do this. This is not going to be for the year, but if you're talking about in Q4, what's my max cost per lead? You can, by taking your NSLI, if you have a really big NSLI, you can spend more per lead and still be at 5%. So I would say, like in the wintertime, personally, I would bump that to 8 or 10% because the goal, in at least for us at Webfoot, was we just want to stay busy enough to keep all of our people employed. We don't need to make money. Like we were fine. Even losing a little bit of money in December and January was okay because everybody still had a job. And when summer came, we were going to crush it. So the I would say really pushing like what are we comfortable with spending, and now you have this total like your by project type. We can spend $233 on an interior, 220 on an exterior, and so on. But now you want to make your budget. Now you just go down to okay, we need 87 leads in for interiors, and again, I would not do this in the summer months, but you could take, we have $191 per lead as our average. So I could do, 87 times the 191. And that means that my budget, in order to get 87 leads at $191 a lead, is $16,600 in marketing spend. Again, if I'm like, okay, well, I want to see if we can do it with 5% marketing spend, you can do that and you'd figure out what your averages are. And that's kind of like your range. But I always liked figuring out Jamaica is always going to try and beat the budget, but you do need to know as a business, like, this is the absolute drop dead maximum. Do not go above this. If you have a campaign running and it's at $220 a lead, cut it off. Like, we cannot spend that. And then, especially in the summertime, like what I would do is I would have my max cost per lead broken out by quarters. So I did Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, and then I would do the calculations. And again, you can do all these from historical data. What did we spend in Q2 on marketing and how many leads did we get? There's our marketing cost per lead. And then you'll notice by project type, it would swing wildly. Like it would be crazy. We would spend literally $15 to get an exterior lead because there's so many leads coming in and no money going out. And then in the wintertime, we would spend $250. And for cabinets, when you go into market on Facebook and you tell your marketing company, I need, scheduled appointments on my calendar for $200, $223, like they can do some real damage with that and in a good way. But if you're just like, yeah, our average cost per lead is $50, you're not going to get a lead in the wintertime on Facebook for $50. And any, I would even say potentially the money that you do spend is wasted because the algorithm never has time to get enough hits and optimize and like successes to optimize. So, anyways, that would be the other benefit of doing this is getting that NSLI is that'd be the one thing that I would say any business should kill their close rate calculations and average job size calculations for the sake of sales bonuses. It's stupid. It's the worst idea ever because I can't tell you if Nathan is a better or worse sales rep than Brian by comparing their job size and close rate and to each other. But I can if we put those together and we say his NSLI is 2,300 and his is 1,800. I need to give more leads to Nathan. I don't know if he's closing really high or closing a high rate or charging well, but either way, he's bringing us in revenue. You know what I'm saying? It's the combination of both that needs to be measured and tracked.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Chris and Nathan, for sharing this um, tons of information. I mean, I agree with Nathan. This is a fire hose, and we've like a lot of this, a lot of the things that we talked about today, we haven't really touched on with for the past month that I've been on board. But I'm really looking forward. I mean, this is really helpful. Um, Yeah, one thing I want to ask was if you guys were on my shoes. I mean, I'm working remotely, and like what Brian said, I mean, I am not really like familiar with the entire industry yet. Um, like, and knowing the task of the marketing manager, like based on my experience before, like I was always on the car showroom, I was always attending events, I was always attending trade shows, and at the same time I'm also like pumping out content and working with the media. So right now that I'm working remotely, and um, as of now, what I'm doing is social media and um, a little of coordination with sponsors, other events. But what else? What else can I do to help the brand? I mean, generate more leads aside from. I mean, considering the fact that I am working remotely.
My first opinion is that social media, is, especially for painting companies, I would put that as far as just like generating social posts. I would put that pretty far down on my list of priorities. I think that posting once a month is, if you're not spending money, also if you're just creating content and doing organic posts, posting once a month is good. It's not like, yes, it could be better if you did more, but the energy spent on just creating social posts is not going to be as valuable as if you spend that energy on creating ads, or like interfacing with like I would always recommend finding a great Google Ads vendor, like someone that, I'm not a fan of companies that charge a retainer to manage your Google Ads, but like bill you by the hour, and it could be 75, 100 bucks, $150 an hour for setting up your Google Ads and consulting you when you have questions. But once Google, especially Google Ads, once Google Ads are set up, it's just like monitor it. You might have to turn it off or change your daily budget, but there's not a ton of like tinkering that needs to happen there. But there is a lot of optimization that can go into the setup and the architecture of the ad campaigns. Facebook, I would say there could be an argument made to have more of like a retainer based approach, because there's more tweaking, it's visual, there's lots of, you can just keep changing the creative. But Google Ads is pretty stagnant and just like it is what it is. But I would say I would spend more time interfacing with the paid media experts, and not, don't, or again, depending on how your experience, I generally don't recommend people try to become Google Ads and Facebook ad experts. I do think anyone can be, but I just think that needs to be a chosen path that you're going to be really good at. And it's better to have a marketing person in the company that's kind of flying the plane and looking at all the dashboards and getting on the phone with people and asking questions and saying, hey, I saw our cost per clicks going up. What does that mean? Educate me, help me understand this. Like, I would say doing more of that is more valuable. And then the other thing, like Nathan said, is you can still craft emails, and like, I'm assuming every Filipino I've ever met is very good with AI, so you probably use ChatGPT all the time as well. But using an AI tool to like ask the question you just asked me to AI, like, and then you have a conversation back and forth and say, what can I do? And like, you could even take the transcript from this call, which I could send over to you, put it into Chat GPT, and say, I want you to pretend to be Nathan and Chris and continue to answer my questions based on this conversation transcript. Like, it's so many things are like we're trying to use AI. I do as like a, just like a filter, or like an accelerator of my ideation, to try and quickly get to like, okay, that's something, there's something there, there's going to be a lot of noise, but the rate that you can generate ideas is just like, it's huge. And then doing, like, if you're going to write an email, it's like, hey, I need 6 emails to send out over the winter, and the goal is to sell more interior cabinet projects or whatever. What are some articles or email headlines and subjects or topics that I should be writing about? Then take those, feed them back in, and say, can you create a blog on this topic? Can you provide me some research on where these statistics are coming from? You know what I'm saying? Like, if you break down, I feel like people fail with AI because they will say, you know, get me a bunch of leads for my painting business, and it's going to give you a paragraph, which isn't that helpful. But if you break it down into chunks of like, what are things I can do? And it's going to say you can email your customers. Be like, ooh, okay. If I'm going to email my customers and I want this objective, what's some things I could email them? Okay, take one of those. If I want to take this subject, can you give me do some research and provide me 10 articles that have statistics on the importance of upgrading your home before the holidays? I don't know. I'm just, you know what I'm saying? And it will spit back answers. But you have to be the one guiding and directing it, and just keep feeding, like looping the information back and going deeper. And then you'll end up with really good stuff that you just orchestrated. And I feel like sometimes people are guilty or feel guilty that they are like using it to like do too much. And I would say the value in what you're doing is how you're using AI, and because you should use it a lot, but people that just use it a lot but they don't know how to use it, it's not valuable, if that makes sense. It's like the collaboration of the person that's directing it that makes it valuable, because it still has to be good. Like, you still have to look at it and say, this doesn't make sense to me. We need to revise this or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say if I had a painting business with a remote marketer, the things I'd be thinking about, just high level paid digital. I've been hearing a lot that pay per click on Google is not good. LSA, the LSA ads is good. And then Facebook leads, they can be good, but you have to manage them. It's high levels of management. So that may be the one thing you want to pay a company to operate for you. Um, Another big one is the Google Business Profile. So making sure you're posting on there, making sure you have it all set up properly, and making sure that you're getting lots of Google reviews. Okay. You can be calling past customers. You can email past customers. You can use Boolean review software, whatever you want. Make sure your Google Business Profile is really good, because you're going to have tons of your traffic is going to go through that site. So optimize that thing. Um, uh, for remote marketers, your existing customer list. That's what I tell everybody when they're like, "What should I do for marketing?" I'm like, maximize your customer list. Like, they should be hearing from you a lot, right? Like, they have already trusted you, even if you haven't worked with them, or even if you haven't ever given them an appointment. They've given you their name and number. You know that they are somebody who is potentially interested in hiring out painting work, right? So how can you optimize your existing customer list? And then how can you, for prospecting, you can't go prospect because you're in Manila, but you can give your sales team a list of 200 businesses that they should go visit in the next month, right? So, like, getting them some of that legwork done, names and numbers and addresses of prospecting that can be done, like making their job a little bit easier, I think those are all things that would be great. Another big one is coming up with systems and processes to maximize lead conversion. Okay, I think it's the most overlooked number when it comes to marketing. How many of my leads am I converting to appointments? Okay, so speed to lead is a huge one. You've got to respond to every name and number in less than 5 minutes. Like, that, I almost wish I would have started with that, because there's nothing like that is such a big deal. Figure out a way using AI, using automated. I mean, you've got us to work with. So if we're not getting back to leads within 5 minutes, like, we will help you, and we want to help you set up systems and measure that, because you're paying a lot for those leads, and any minute past 5 minutes of the time to response is going to like tank your conversion ratio. Okay. So we got to get back to leads within 5 minutes, 24/7, weekends, nights, whatever it is, we need to be responding within 5 minutes. Okay. So that's another huge thing that you can come up with systems and processes for. Um, and then the last one that comes to mind for me is sales follow up. Salespeople they love to close on the spot. Well, some are great at follow up, some hate follow up. But you can close a lot of deals on following up with past estimates, like recent past estimates, and that's something that can be done remotely. Oh, I've got more. Okay, couple more. Thinking about like pre-positioning after an appointment gets set, pre-positioning or warm-up emails from the time an appointment gets set until it gets ran. There can be emails that go out to the customer to warm them up. I think follow-up can be done by a remote person. I think it's probably ideal to have the salesperson do their own follow-up, but it's like I don't think it's much less effective to have somebody in the office doing that follow-up. Yeah, those warm-up emails or pre-positioning emails are something that they can be created and they can be set up. Follow-up emails can be templated. Um, yeah, campaigns for your existing customers can be all created. All those, yeah, those are the things that come to mind for me.
Um, I was going to show you. You probably didn't even know that you had this, but this is something that we have all of our clients get. This is the on your HubSpot dashboard. I just renamed it. I don't know. I'm assuming you guys probably don't look at this that often, but there's this HubSpot dashboard. I just named it Marketing Lead Sales. Um, but this is like, I would say another skill for you, Jamaica, because you're using HubSpot. I know this is small, but it's if you go look in here, I do think it's really valuable for marketing people to be able to quickly extract the reports after them. I'm just going to keep going because I'm assuming he's going to stop in a second. Um, but so Jamaica, being able to make these reports to answer the questions that you want to know, like lead sources. So this is leads this month by source. So this month, you guys, or at the end of September, you guys had 37 web search, 24 best pick. You know, you can see that. But down here, this is the Boolean master dashboard. And you guys, we could have gone in here. I didn't even know if you guys were filling, or we are feeding this to you automatically. So Brian, your question on how much of this can be automated. Um, these are all of your web search or lead sources. I know this is super small. I'll make it a little bigger. Um, you'll see there's a bunch of divide by zeros because you guys don't have any marketing spend data in your system. So that's the one part that's really hard to automate. Pulling in is the marketing spend. But if you guys actually updated your marketing spend by source, all of these things that say your cost per MQL, SQL, run appointment, one job, your spend to revenue would be all broken down. But we already have, and we're tracking for you guys. You had 27, this is for the year to date totals. So you guys had 2,700 MQLs from web search, and that turned into 824 SQLs. That seems like there's a massive. This could be a discrepancy from over creating deals potentially, or some deals that shouldn't exist. But the point is that we base this is like Nathan was saying, MQLs are just names and numbers. SQLs are your actual scheduled estimates. So we actually have your VPS or NSLI for every source that you have. And then you can also separate, this is for interiors. You could look and just get exteriors. Here's your VPS for all sources with exteriors. Your average VPS for exteriors is 3,271. So all this data is in here. I'm always hesitant to show, like, these are very cool dashboards that I'm proud of that I created, but it can be dangerous to use someone else's thing that you don't really understand. I think after today's conversation, Jamaica, you probably will see a number of the things that we were talking about show up here. But you really do have to take ownership over the reporting in the dashboard to be able to. I think I'm getting feedback from you again, Brian. Um, but you have to take ownership over the dashboard in order to be able to um, make sure that it's correct and make adjustments and tweaks and improvements and so on. And we probably have 2 minutes because I have there's going to be someone else hopping on. But any closing questions to wrap this up?
I'm gonna jump out. It was great to meet you, Brian and Jamaica. Yeah, feel free to reach out if you have any other questions or anything come up. You have my email at nathan@helloboolean.com, and I'm happy to help with whatever. And great meeting you guys.
So yeah, I would say there's a book called They Ask You Answer that I highly recommend. SEO is a topic that's like it's a monster. Like there's so much to do it well, and so I mean that'd be interesting. I'd be happy to do another conversation on SEO specifically. I would say it could be done, but I would also potentially beg the question on you need to define what you mean by SEO first, and then because SEO means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And I honestly would say what Nathan mentioned is probably the best advice for most people, and that would be um, you're optimizing your Google business profile with photos, posts, filling out the services that you offer, and really hammering reviews. They're seeing more and more and more that is going to be far more impactful for a service business like you guys than like worrying about creating blogs on your website. But if you are going to create blogs, they just need to be really good, like the best on that topic. Like I'm a big believer that you should not waste time creating like filler content, but you would be better off being like coming up with what's the best topic that's like the most what's the word I'm looking for, something relevant to your business, could be about cabinet painting or something, and then your job is to go research the search terms that you're looking for, find the best articles on the web, like literally what are the top 5 results, and you have to somehow compile those 5 blogs into a new blog that is better in every way than those. More video content, photos, graphs, statistics, research, compile those, link those in your blog. But like Google doesn't care if you're the 60th best article on a topic, right? You got to be number 1, 2, or 3, or you're wasting your energy. So that's when it comes to SEO, I would say it works, but it's just you can't just be like, hey, we're just getting some reps out here and it's fun and we posted 5 blogs last month. It's not going to do anything for you. But if you are going to tackle SEO, you literally got to go for the top. And that book, They Ask You Answer, is a fantastic. Like that's my philosophy, because we did that at Webfoot. We had a team, we had a copywriter, we had a videographer on staff, and we created killer blogs and articles that were highly ranking. And it was everyone in that we were literally making blogs for the entire country, and we only served Little Bend, Oregon, you know. And but that was that. If you think that if Google sees that we're making an article that's relevant everywhere in the world, it's going to show top result when you're in Bend, like yes, of course it is, you know. So yeah, that would be. But there's more to it than that. But that's my answer there. For those of you listening, thank you so much for tuning in, and hopefully you learned something. All the documents and the sheets that I shared, I'll put in the show notes so you can grab those. They'll probably be on YouTube because it's hard to put it in the show notes on Spotify. But if you have any questions or you want any other resources, don't hesitate to reach out. And Brian, thank you for having the idea and just or having the initiative to ask the question. And I was happy to chat.